Have you ever felt a presence in a room, even when you knew you were completely alone? That little shiver down your spine, the feeling of being watched. Most of us dismiss it. I used to, as well. Until I moved into the old house on Chestnut Lane. It was a beautiful Victorian, a dream come true for my wife, Clara, and me. We were so excited to start our lives there, to fill its rooms with laughter and memories. We had no idea one memory was already waiting for us, a memory that had refused to fade for over a century. Our first few weeks were... We painted walls, unpacked boxers, and planned our future. The house had a certain character, a sense of history that we loved. But then, little things started happening. A book would fall from a shelf with no one near it. A door we knew we had closed would be found wide open. We'd hear faint whispers, like the tail end of a conversation, just as we entered a room. Clara, ever the pragmatist, blamed old pipes. And Rafsy, I wanted to believe her. I really did. But a part of me felt a growing unease. It felt less like a house settling and more like a house ... reacting. The activity centered around the upstairs study. It was a beautiful room, lined with dark wood shelves and a large bay window overlooking the garden. But it was always cold, a deep, penetrating chill that no amount of heating could touch. One evening, I was working late in the study, trying to finish a project. The air grew heavy, and that familiar chill settled in. Suddenly, the scent of lavender filled the room, so strong it was almost overwhelming. It was an old-fashioned, powdery scent, not like any perfume Clara owned. At the same time, I heard the distinct, soft rustle of a heavy skirt, like silk or taffeta, moving across the floorboards behind me. I spun around in my chair, my heart pounding. The room was empty. The scent was gone, but the feeling of not being alone was stronger than ever. Clara had her own encounter a few days later. She was in the garden, planting roses, when she looked up at the study window. She said she saw a woman standing there, just for a second. A pale figure in a dark, old-fashioned dress with her hair pinned up. She described her as looking sad, lost. Clara blinked, and she was gone. That's when we knew we weren't just living in an old house. We were sharing it. We decided to do some research. A trip to the local library's historical archives gave us the name we were looking for. Ilara Vance. She had been the original owner of the house, built for her as a wedding gift by her husband in the late 1800s. The archives painted a tragic picture. Ilara had loved the house, especially her study, where she spent hours reading and writing. But her husband was a sea captain, often gone for months at a time. The records showed that on one voyage, his ship was lost in a storm. Ilara waited for him, refusing to believe he was gone. She would stand at the study window for hours, watching the road, waiting for a carriage that would never arrive. According to town records, she passed away in that very house, in that very room, a few years later. The official cause was a fever, but the townspeople always said she died of a broken heart. She had never left her vigil. Knowing her story changed everything. The strange occurrences no longer felt menacing. The cold spots, the whispers, the scent of lavender. It wasn't a haunting. It was an echo of a life lived, of a love that refused to end. This wasn't a malevolent spirit. It was Clara, still waiting for her husband to come home. We started to interact with her in our own way. When we entered the study, we'd say good evening, Clara. When we smelled the lavender, Clara would say, "Your perfume smells lovely today." It sounds strange, I know, but the house began to feel different. Warmer? The strange events didn't stop, but they felt less like intrusions and more like gentle reminders of her presence. One day, I found an old, leather-bound journal tucked away in a hidden compartment of the study's desk. It was her diary. The pages were filled with her elegant script, detailing her love for her husband, her joy in their home, and her crushing despair when he didn't return. The final entry was heartbreaking. "The house is cold without you," she wrote, "but I will wait. I will always wait for you here, in our home. Forever." Reading her words, I felt an incredible wave of empathy. She wasn't a ghost to be feared. She was a woman trapped in her own grief. Her love so powerful it had tethered her very soul to the place she last felt happy. We decided we didn't want to force her out. This was her home as much as it was ours. Instead, we wanted to help her find peace. We found a small, weathered portrait of her husband in the town archives. We had it framed and placed it on the mantelpiece in the study, right next to a vase of fresh lavender. That evening, as Clara and I stood in the study, a strange thing happened. The room, which had always been so cold, began to warm up. A gentle breeze stirred the curtains, even though the window was closed, and the scent of lavender was joined by a faint, salty smell, like the sea. We both felt it, a profound sense of peace, of release. It was as if two souls, separated by time and tragedy, were finally reunited. The activity in the house has all but stopped now. The study is warm and inviting. My favorite room in the house. Every now and then, on a quiet evening, we'll catch a faint scent of lavender mixed with sea salt, and we'll smile. We don't think of her as the ghost who never left. We think of her as the first lady of the house, its guardian. She wasn't waiting for us to leave. She was just waiting for someone to understand her story and, finally, bring her husband home. Our house on Chestnut Lane is filled with laughter and our own memories now, but it's also filled with a story of a love that was stronger than time itself, and we feel privileged to be a part of it. Thank you so much for listening to our story. If you've ever had a similar experience or just enjoyed this little piece of history, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. See you next time.